For indigenous languages, I would like people to understand that languages are part of a people's identity.
Yeah.
And it's sacred, in my opinion, which means the extra effort to learn and to properly deliver on a native language is necessary. It is
Mm.
history, it is generations, it is a whole thousands and most likely millions of people's identity.
Hi, and welcome to the Everything Voiceovers podcast. I'm Tcode, an African voiceover talent from Nigeria, and this is my podcast, where I take on voiceover topics from an African perspective. On this episode, my guest is Blessyn Kure, a trilingual multimedia personality, voice artist and storyteller from the northern part of Nigeria, and she lets us into a world of voice acting, from wanting to be a pilot as a child to becoming one of the most sought after Nigerian female storytellers. Sit back and enjoy this episode. Hello guys, welcome to another episode of the Everything Voiceover podcast. I'm Tcode, and as always, I bring you interesting conversations about voiceovers from the African perspective. And joining me today is a versatile and trilingual media personality, voice artist, and storyteller. She does voiceovers in English, Hausa, Pidgin, and has done voice works for organizations like WHO, UK government, Adidas, Cartoon Network, Johnny Walker, the United Nations, just to name a few. Now, it's also worth mentioning that she was a judge for Rockefeller Foundation's Youth Voice Awards and has been involved in several female advocacy and tourism movements. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you none other than Blessyn Kure. Blessyn, it's a delight to have you on this podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great. I've been hoping to have you on this pod for a while now. In fact, just to have us talk about voiceovers and talk about the industry, talk about the business, and a whole lot of things like that. So
Well,
it's a
here we
pleasure
are
to have you
today.
here.
Thank you. We're here already today.
Okay, let me start from your name. I remember chatting you up and using the spelling Blessing, and then you
Mhm.
said it is supposed to be Blessyn. So it got me
Yeah.
thinking:
Yes.
is the second spelling your actual name spelling, or sort of like a nickname type of spelling?
So I'm a firm believer in answering only what I call myself, right? So as
Yeah.
a brand, as a media person, I have
Mm,
decided that my creative name will be Blessyn Kure with a YN. Now,
mm,
of course, my government name is an ING, but I choose on across all boards, literally, you would almost not see traces of an
mm-hmm.
a Blessyn ING Kure relating to me on the internet anymore. So
Yeah.
it's is how I choose to identify for my creative bits. And I believe that we all have parts of our beings and existence that we decide to put forward. And for my creativity, I would rather be
Mm.
called Blessing Career with a YN.
Interesting. I see that you're very particular and intentional about your branding. I've seen you on different platforms, pay to play platforms, your website, your everywhere. You're
Hmm.
intentional, and that's really cool. It shows how much of a media person that you are. But talking about being a media person, what was the idea of what you wanted to be like when you grow up? Say, did you think you were going to be a voiceover artist? Was that a dream, or was it to be, a radio personality, or what was it like for you growing up?
Growing up was very interesting. I would say I lived my childhood to the fullest. I believe in living every stage to the fullest. I mean, then I didn't know that was what it was, but I was living my best life. So,
Oh wow.
as a child, I wanted to be a pilot, and I was going to eventually study aeronautic engineering, and then I ended up studying quantity surveying. I love buildings, I love structures, I love architecture. I studied quantity surveying, so I am currently um, that's my field by education,
Mm-hmm.
and I have a master's in the pipes for that. I,
Mm.
however, media found me, and I started work at a radio station, did news, I've done reporting, I've done presenting. I do spoken word poetry writing and then the voicing, and that kind of just found me.
Hmm.
I know it may not make much sense to anyone, but there are things that find you. You don't go looking for
Yeah,
them.
yeah. Yeah, I
So this
agree.
was
I
one
agree
of
with
those
you.
things for me. Because I mean, voiceover 10, 15, 20 years ago, voiceover wasn't something I said, maybe like you're about to be a voice actor. Like what? So
It wasn't a thing
it's
like
more
that.
popular. It's more popular
Mm-hmm.
now and it's more
Mm-hmm.
widely acceptable. However, that was no, I didn't think I was going to get paid to talk.
And by the way, are you practicing what you studied?
Yeah,
Oh, nice. Interesting.
passively.
Okay, but you're falling
Um,
in love with voiceovers.
I am a
I mean,
media person, so not voiceovers only. I'm
mm,
a media
mm,
personality. And as I said, there are many sides to a person, and who is to pick
yeah,
and choose? Why must we
yeah.
pick and choose?
But then you've done so well to, set yourself up in that voiceover space. And I'm also very interested in understanding those things that influenced you. So, and I know you do Hausa voiceovers and Pidgin
Hmm.
as well. So I'm
Hmm.
wondering what was growing up like for you. Let's start with growing up in Nigeria. Which city did you grow up, and what was that childhood experience for you? And tell us how then it graduated to you understanding there is something called voiceovers, or even when you didn't understand voiceovers, but you probably heard it on radio and something like that. Was it something
Okay.
you'd do, like play with, or just something there and someday it found you, like you said?
I was a very curious child. I am a very curious person. So
Mm.
I asked a lot of questions. And there was no Google. Shout out to my parents for doing an amazing job back in the day. There was no
Wow.
Google, so if I ask questions, I mean sometimes they would have to read it up because there was no Google. So I was very curious and I was interested. I mean, I loved to travel till date. I think right
Mm.
from time I would always say my hobby is traveling, and till date I was just fascinated with culture, with how people behaved, with how people's experiences. So I had a very culturally enriched childhood, which was like I had influences from a lot of tribes, and not just saying, oh, growing up in the north, I solo traveled to southeast when I think I was 9, because I just saw it on TV and I'm like, this would be a nice place to go. My parents were like, okay, you could do that.
Wow.
So I did have
Wow.
a lot of experience with culture and a lot of I do have a lot of appreciation for culture. I speak Hausa, I speak Pidgin, speak Yoruba, I learned Igbo. I speak passive Igbo because I
Wow.
used to live in the East. So I pick
Mm.
languages like really fast. And for projects, I think I've learned Arabic for a bit. I've spoken Tree. I learn languages fast. And so I didn't know it was going to be voiceover. I knew I wanted to be in a space that fully encompasses these things. And I think that's the good thing. Voiceover does encompass every part of your
Mm.
experience as a person. Say, even if
Mm.
you I do documentary narration quite often,
Mm-hmm.
these are things I could relate to. Say if I'm doing commercials, these are things I could relate to. So there are a lot of things that you begin to see your day-to-day living in the career, and it's just very ever changing. It's nice, it's fun.
By the way, yeah, it is actually. And you come to me like I see that you have different experiences of culture put together, and that's a
Mhm.
good thing to have as a voice talent. You those experiences, they help you put characters in
And
motion,
become,
and
yes, become different people.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. So you can act as an Hausa person, and you're not just acting the role, but you know how they think, and you know how the other people that you probably would play their role think, and that's a great thing. Oh,
I mean,
okay.
I
So
believe
so
travel is very good education. Sorry for cutting you. I believe travel is very good
yeah,
education, and it
yeah.
gives you the best form of education, cultural appreciation, and then you just learn things. Because you can pick how someone talks, let's say from the motor park, and you just put in a character, and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
"This is amazing,"
Exactly. Exactly.
and you give a
Exactly.
silent
That's
shout out
it.
to the person.
So many shout out to the people that we've stolen their characters, maybe the market
More like
women.
being inspired by their stuff.
Yeah, that's the word. That's the
Mm-hmm.
word.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. And for the record, I know you traveled a lot, but what part of the north?
Kaduna,
Ah, I see.
among other
Fantastic.
places. Well, let's say Kaduna for
Yeah,
this.
great, great. Now we're talking about voiceovers, and you talked about
Hmm.
traveling and all of that. At the time that you decided, oh yes, you said voiceovers found you, but was
Hmm.
there a conscious effort to learn voiceovers? Did you sign up for any training? Did you do your research on the internet and just build up on that? What was that learning experience for you like for voiceovers?
I would always say voiceovers is beyond having a good voice. And that's the mistake.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, your voice is nice, yes, so is the voice of a million other people. It's not just talking,
Mm.
it's a whole craft, it's a whole art. Just like how you would go and master your skills in, say, being studying medicine or engineering, you have to also hone these skills. So when voiceover found me, and then I was in Hot FM actively. I had been doing voiceovers for a very long time, but I didn't know it
On
was a
radio.
thing. It was, yes, I
Mm.
didn't know it was just part of a day's work. I didn't know it was an establishment that could,
Mm-hmm.
I
An
mean, I didn't know it
industry.
could be a full-time thing. I didn't know it was an industry. Thank you.
Mm.
So when I did start to discover that, okay, I was getting called to do a lot more work. And then I had traveled, and I think I met a producer that used to produce voiceovers in Lagos. I was like, you're really good. You're almost a natural. Did you train at this? I'm just like, oh, no, not really. I said, okay. So we worked together for a period of time,
Mm.
and it was pointers, and I could see the trajectory of the improvements my voice had made within such a short period of time. But then there is very little access people have, and I'm saying people, myself included, to trainings.
Mm.
I mean,
Especially
years and
as
years ago,
Africans.
as Africans, as Nigerians, and then
Mm-hmm.
but the internet is a good place. God bless
Mm-hmm.
the University of YouTube. So it was
Yeah.
it was hours and hours and hours of consuming content, of learning, of fine-tuning, of finding what fits you. A lot of times I see people say,
Mm.
oh, I'm trying to get a mentor, can you teach me? I'm like, no, I'm going to point you in the direction of, however, I may not be able to give you, hold your hand and walk. But no, no, no,
Mm.
no, no, you must hold my hand. If you're not holding my hand and walking, it's not going to work. That's not true. Guess
Mm.
what? A lot of
Mm.
the people that are breaking boundaries had no formal voiceover education. It's
Hmm.
growth. We don't have a voiceover university. It's growth, it's
Mm.
training, it's wanting to do better and having that desire to be the better or the best version of yourself, which is something I try to do daily in whatever niche. So as a media personality, as a voice artist, as a person that advocates for stuff, I still ensure that I am the best version of myself.
Of you. It's an interesting perspective that you bring into the conversation, talking about how, not many of the big top guns in voiceovers had what we can call a formal training into that craft. Uh, and I see what you're saying in terms of, because I've interacted with a lot of voice talent, and I realized that just attending a training is not enough. If you don't have that fire burning in you before you came, you're still going to you might remain the same way. So for those people that still become a big deal after attending such trainings, it's not, yeah, the training played a part, but they have also been invested in that craft, and the training was just a means to an end. It was just something to help them actualize more or better what they were aspiring to become. So you have a
And
point. I mean,
An
yeah, go on.
analogy we could use is like the trainings are like holding a lamp on a path and you're walking, right? Someone else can
Yeah.
hold the lamp for you, but you have to make the steps. You have to move. You have to be the one to still keep checking and fine tuning it.
Mm,
It's even if you're paying or you have a full-time coach, you will
yeah.
still being a voiceover talent means you know negotiations. It means
Yeah.
you are good with people skills. It means you could have basic content creation. It means audio production. It means a lot of things.
It means
So
a lot.
there's
Yeah.
only so much a person can give you that will last you for the rest of your career.
Yeah, yeah, and you mentioned things like audio production, the business part of it, the branding, and all of that. Wow, that's a lot to talk. That's a lot. That's a whole different aspect to it that people don't realize. They just think it's about having a great voice. And talking about that as well, that takes me back to when you talked about working on radio, and at that point you were doing voiceovers, but you never knew it was an industry. I was also in that space. I worked on radio for years, and I didn't know as well, or should I say, it wasn't a big deal. It's not like, so you're an OAP, for instance. Somebody's going to pay you some chicken change to voice something, but you won't know the value, or many OAPs don't know the value of what they're doing, you know, because they don't value it actually until they get exposed to the industry and they realize,
Which is why they say
oh,
knowledge is power.
yeah, knowledge is power. So it's quite interesting, and I'm happy we're having this kind of conversation. A lot of people need to be educated about the voiceover industry and see what it is for what it is. Now let's talk about your creative process. So someone gets you a gig and says, "We want you to do this voiceover for us." How does it work for you, from the negotiations to gets into the studio, and you're going to tell us also how you produce, I mean, your production process, or just your voicing process. Do you work with a producer? Do you do it yourself? And yeah, just a general feel of what your production and your creative process is like.
I think that this was a very loaded question. So if at any point I forget to answer any, I think it would be nice for you to draw my attention to it. So let me just start with what I remember.
Definitely, trust me, I'll do that.
My creative process is so book a project, and they send the script. Of course, by booking a project, I'm saying maybe negotiations are done, or I mean, if you contact me, the negotiation process, and then we understand. It's important that I ask questions. I think a lot of times, especially people starting out, are scared to ask questions because they feel like they'll irritate the
Mm,
client. But questions
mm,
help you have a clearer view. Now, the questions sometimes, even preferably for me, come before we even negotiate, because I want a
mm-hmm,
1 minute voiceover and me saying, give me this. It's different then
mm,
later telling me I want a 1 minute voiceover in Hausa, meaning you translate it and I need it in 30 minutes, meaning you have to do it immediately. And I need you
mm.
to put music. Can you see how the cost is changing?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
for me, those conversations and those inquiries, of course, they're pretty standard. And I have that conversation. Once that's settled, it depends on the timing. So voiceovers are always needed like yesterday. It's always I need it yesterday. I need it. I need it. Na 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 na. Na. It's just a very it's a funny thing, but I think any artist could relate. So um,
Yeah.
I get that done. It depends on the duration of the project. For shorter projects, if you get that done, if it's a live directed session, depending on the platform they choose, we sort the time and the date and a lot of back and forth and professionalism, because I mean it helps. And then going to the studio, I do have a studio. I do have producers that work with me or for me.
With you.
But
Mm,
with yes, so I do work, have producers that work for me, but I do my own production. So I
mm,
do my own production as well. So it depends on the workload, it depends on the theme of the entire project, and what we have on our desks at the moment. So that's done. I get it to the clients, they have feedbacks, they write them down, they articulate it properly. I'd always like ask questions, specific questions, because revisions
mm.
are not meant to be. It's not that you say, oh, because this line I don't like it. Okay, I'm changing half of the script. That's going to cost you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's going to cost you. You're not going to just be changing
yeah,
scripts, finalize before you get to
yeah.
me. Thank you. Right. So that's going to cost you. So you have to establish this. What is your correction? Oh, did you not like how you started this? Again, sorry, towards the beginning, after the negotiation, you ask for creative direction. How do you want me to sound? Who do you want me to
Mm-hmm.
become? Because most times
Yeah.
people have an exact picture of what maybe your sample or somebody else's sample.
Yeah.
that they want you
Yeah.
to be. So it's best if they give you a sample and you know that, oh, they want me to sound like Tcode. So I would
Mm.
see what Tcode sounds like on the project that relates best to it. A lot of research is going to help you in this whole career because you can't go and I mean, certain brands have brand identities, and then you just go because you didn't research them, the brand, the
Mm.
topic, the you just go and do what you're doing. It comes off a
Mm.
bit tacky and sometimes somewhat offensive.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you could do that, you do the research, and then I do the recording. And when they say, oh, the revision, mostly outline it, encourage them to outline it. For those that don't like to type, they could say, oh, they don't send a voice note, that's fine. Send an explain your points. And when they do that, we revise, we get it back to you. If there's, I mean, mostly it depends on what you're paying for. So standard, it
Mm.
could be like two, you could say two revisions, you could say one revision, but you can't be revising till the end of the world. So at some
Yeah.
point, when the revisions just like specify, it has to be very clear. What do you need? So
Mm.
you when you deliver that and then they start saying, oh, I don't like this, changing exactly what they had said they needed, that's not on you. So at some point in the
Hmm.
dynamics, it may have to then be extra charge. I don't know.
Yeah.
Situations call for different things, right? So
Yeah.
that's pretty much
Yeah.
it.
You know.
Invoice. Oh, I forgot
eh,
invoice. Invoice
oh
and
yeah. Yeah. Invoicing.
ta-da! Smiling to the bank.
It's interesting for me though. I let them know that if the error comes from me in the revision process, there probably I could revise it for you,
Pro
charge
bono.
free.
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
But
terms and
when it comes
conditions are very important.
exactly terms and conditions, and I include that in my invoice too, just so
That's okay.
we have that. Yeah,
We're on the
and
same page.
exactly. And then there's something you mentioned about research and asking questions. I think those two things are very important. I've fallen the victim of so I get this job and I didn't ask enough questions, right? And I already told them this is how much I'll be charging for the job. And I after the negotiation was done, I get the script and the brand was some huge brand I wasn't expecting. And I felt like,
Oh my.
oh my,
You
you
just
get
sit and think about your whole life. It's like,
I'm
God,
telling you.
no.
Oh geez, I sent the person a voice note to be very honest, but then I did the job because I already gave my word.
And most
But,
times
hmm,
for big clients, they wouldn't want to. So it's like exclusivity, especially if they are middle agents. They wouldn't really
yeah,
relinquish the name because they know that's going to affect the pricing, which is why it
yeah,
helps to have a more stable pricing system. And then you can then decide, say, okay, send me the script. When you check and you're sure that it's not some big shot, you could just say, okay, because now you.
yeah. That's a good tip. Send me the scripts so when you see the script and then you can.
Yeah. And of course, by you receiving the script, you know that there's a whole non-disclosure agreement there because
Yeah,
privacy and stuff. So
yeah. Yeah, that is very important. I think that when I know that the industry is getting closer to standardizing in terms of pricing now. We rates there are a couple of rates cards out there, but there aren't it's not like an industry thing because this person is going to charge you this, that person is going to charge you. And I do understand the complexity that comes with some persons are like top dogs, so they deserve to be paid some high value price. But then, we're still working towards it as an industry. And I know that it'll get to that point where people have a sense of this is what a 1 minute commercial is worth. Because if
so
you ask, yeah, go on, please.
I think this problem is predominantly Nigerian for the Nigerian
Mm,
market because South Africa has
yeah,
the South African, I think, Voice Association. I can't remember what the acronym is, but they have a
yeah,
whole rate sheet that is very, very detailed. Terms and
yeah.
conditions, I think it's almost 10 to 20 pages. Terms and
Mm,
conditions, there are, if this happens, this happens. I mean, down to the nitty gritty of if I audition charges to audition, you're supposed
mm,
to be paid. So down to these little
yeah.
union arrangements. So, but I think we're yet to get to that point as the Nigerian
Yeah.
voice.
and the thing is, we do actually have a rate card. We have an association, that's the Association of Voiceover Actors in Nigeria, that's AVOA.
Hmm.
But then the I think the information is not really out there. And to be honest, I also think the rates, they need to be reviewed. And I'm aware that AVOA is working on these things. So fingers crossed, a lot of changes will be happening sooner than we expect. All right, so let's
Fingers
talk
crossed.
about, yeah, fingers crossed. Let's talk about
Mm.
the type of voiceovers that you do. You do Hausa language, indigenous languages like Hausa, Pidgin, and all of that. Now, people pay attention mostly to English, the attention that we give to indigenous languages. And what I'm trying to say is you find more people doing voiceovers in English than you find them doing in, um, say, Yoruba, Hausa, and different languages, particularly in Nigeria. Now, you've been able to build something around Hausa language voiceovers. I remember there was a job that I was talking about with a producer, and then we had to do the Hausa version, and your name came straight up, and I was like, this is amazing. But I'm curious to know how you built confidence to say, oh, I'm not just going to do English. I'm going to do Hausa. I'm going to do Pidgin. Is it that you're so good with the language, or you decided to learn to do voiceovers in that language and make it a thing of for yourself? Yeah.
Voiceovers, much like any other product or service, is governed by the principle of demand and supply. Now, you
Hmm.
mentioned English voiceovers being predominant because there are more English speaking people in Nigeria. It's a unifying language. So, unless there is a particular campaign that is tailored towards the North or the West, or for the
Hmm.
East, it will be speaking Igbo. So, that
Yeah.
is then when you need those artists. But what is the average commercial value? Will you be in, say, Katsina and be trying to run
Hmm.
an Igbo ad? Do
No.
you understand?
Uh, yeah.
Exactly. I can't even say Lagos because Lagos is like a cultural melting pot. Everybody is in Lagos, so that would make sense.
Yeah.
So it's like saying, would you now go to um Abia and be running a strictly Hausa campaign?
Hmm.
There are a lot of, I mean, because by virtue of the commercialization of the space, there are a lot of houses there, but it's the demand. What is the demand
Hmm.
on ground? And that leads me to my second talking point, which is the westernization and the very disturbing fading away of indigenous languages. There are statistics there are that show that in say in the next 50 years, a lot of languages will be extinct.
Hmm.
These are predominant. Now we're speaking English, Hausa, Pidgin, Yoruba,
Yeah.
and Igbo. And Fulani, those are regarded as the predominantly popular languages in Nigeria. But Nigeria
Yes.
has well over 600 languages.
Hmm.
And if you are a minority tribe in Nigeria, you'll understand what this concern is. Because if they're running an ad in, say, um, Gombe, right? It's most likely
Hmm.
going to be,
Yeah.
let's do a Hausa ad. But there's a Tangale person
Hmm.
there. Will there be a Tangale ad for them? If you're running
Hmm.
an ad in Kogi, and there's somebody from that is Yagba, will you then say,
Hmm.
instead of doing specifically general Yoruba as that everybody can hear, let's speak Okun?
Hmm.
No. Owere, there's Owere, there's Igbo, then there's Owere. It's separate language. People don't know that.
Yeah.
Would you then say, let's do that version and then take it to another eastern state? No.
Hmm.
So just like any product, is demand and supply.
And
There's demand
supply.
of English. There's demand of English speaking distance. There's even more demand of transatlantic and British and American. So you see more voice artists doing English, British, and American. And also the influences were a product of our society, were a product of what we ingest. A lot of the materials out there have more neutral accents. So the older generations of voice artists are able to do more heavier, what's considered African accents. But it's
Hmm.
when the newer generation, there's a
Yeah.
bit of a struggle to some extent. Now I'm not drawing the line, I'm not making conclusions from what I've
Hmm.
observed. There's a bit of a
Yeah.
struggle accessing that. And that's not a problem. That's not their fault. That's not, I'm not saying that's a problem. That's just saying this is how they speak. Now, if need be, I could switch to a Hausa character. I could switch to this, but this is how I talk on a normal day. This is
Yeah.
no tongue twisting, tongue tying, mouth turning. But
Yeah.
if I need to speak
Yeah.
pidgin, obviously all this goes away.
Hmm. You
So
know,
it is
yeah.
demand, it is supply, it is westernization, it is tribes more like decentralization of tribes and settlements, and just more westernization, more urbanization as well, because there's a lot of
Yeah.
migration here. These people from here are jumping here, like that, like that.
Yeah.
So it's just,
Yeah.
oh, what does everybody speak? It's more economic to run a nationwide English campaign than to start looking for
Yeah.
everybody's village language.
Hmm.
So that's what
Wow,
it is.
that's interesting. And your answer brought me thinking about the different types of accents. Even when we talk English now, the different types of English accents that exist in Nigeria. And when you're talking about the fact that other tribes, those languages they're fading in terms of relevance and how the demand is for them. Now, I was just wondering, even our accent, it's more like as generations come, the accents also change because
Mhm.
y- these kids are getting exposed to a lot of foreign content. We have a lot of children that would grow up on what's this popular a Baby Shark type of cartoons and stuff like that. And then
Oh,
you
I love
listen to
Baby
the
Shark.
way, yeah, and you listen to the way the kids they talk. This new generation of Africans, Nigerians in particular, and young ones that I've seen, they talk with so much fluency. The diction, the phonetics is all cool and all of that. And so I'm just saying that in the next 20 years or 30 years, they will become the voice actors then. And I'm wondering what our nation, our community would be like in terms of accent. It's just a thought anyway. Let's talk about, yes, your venture in Hausa. Still, we haven't left that. I haven't done Hausa voiceovers and Pidgin voiceovers for a while. Those are the types of voiceovers that I'll consider to be indigenous language voiceovers. For people that want to venture in this categories of voiceovers in the nearest future, the younger ones, what would you tell them to pay attention to?
Okay. Language. There are a host of things that should be paid attention to. Aside quality, obviously, that goes for both English, Pidgin, and Hausa, and all other languages and general voiceover career. But for indigenous languages, I would like people to understand that languages are a part of a people's identity.
Yeah.
And it's sacred, in my opinion, which means the extra effort to learn and to properly deliver on a native language is necessary. It is
Hmm.
history, it is generations, it is a whole thousands and most likely millions of people's identity. So this
Hmm.
means if I get a job to voice something in a language I don't speak, it will be honorable to at least learn the best version of how to
Hmm.
speak that language indigenously, speak it correctly, represent it properly. Because again, a voicing is supposed to convey and bridge the gap between, say, the brand or the organization and the people they get into. But if the people can't find that connection, it's just going to be, this is just rude.
Hmm.
So this means if I'm trying to do a Hausa or Yoruba or Pidgin voiceover and I see a word I'm not very certain about, confirm it. Languages are
Hmm.
not, I mean, English is difficult. If you meet people that study English and literature, they have tales to tell. English is
Hmm.
difficult to study, but you see, indigenous languages, I can think off the top of my head, I can think of six meanings of ah, of how to say ah, and it means different things. Ah, there's there's a, like,
Mhm.
it's the same word
Aha.
in Hausa, I mean, in Hausa, not
Oh.
exclamation. So it is the same one. It is the same word. It
Okay.
is different meaning. Varies from, say, the let's not get into the history of it, but it varies from region to region how languages are spoken. Now, I don't just, people are
True.
like, oh, you speak Hausa so well. I read Hausa books as well. I study
Hmm.
on the surface. You have to, it's the real, like, as native as it goes. It's confirming the
Hmm.
pronunciations, it's confirming the meanings, it's confirming, is this the authentic way to pronounce it? Does this fully represent the average Hausa person? Does this fully represent what the language is? Not just, oh, let me just catch out and
Hmm.
be going. I don't really don't care about this language. I do care about languages. I may not
Hmm.
be Hausa, a maybe Hausa person, but you
Hmm.
learn to speak it. If you need to speak pidgin, it's not that you will now start doing the pidgin voiceover and saying, what you tell? It has to be. Put some work into it.
Yeah.
Put some energy. Put your back into it. Learn it. Digest it. Speak it. Be it.
Hmm.
That's just that's the best. That's the most respectable and honorable thing to do to a language, because language is our identity. I know there's a lot of, oh, it's Nigeria in Nigeria. Yes, I mean we're together now, so get over it. It represents us as a
Yeah.
people. So represents this, how I would rather pass up on, say, oh, this opportunity than just botch a person's native language. That's not
Yeah.
fair.
Well said. Well said. I agree with you 100%. Now let's talk about your venture into the pay to play sites. I remember
Mhm.
a few years ago I was trying to set up my pay to play accounts, and I find you in a couple of them. And it's not just me finding you there, but you're able to, position yourself quite all right. You have good ratings, the branding is on point and all of that. Tell me about your venture into pay to play sites. What's been that experience like? Has it been a very good, friendly one? Are there things that you regret about it? Or let's talk about that.
It's been a very friendly, enjoyable experience. It
Hmm.
offers flexibility, but as I say, freelancing is not as flexible as people think. Because many, I mean, I've had to
Okay.
answer a couple of times, I want to control my time. I don't want anybody to be the boss of me. Well, guess what freelancing
Yeah.
does for you? Guess what working for yourself does for you? It gives you more than one boss a month. It means if I work on
Yeah.
20 projects in a month, I have 20 bosses in a month. Different
Hmm.
temperaments, different communication, most likely different time zones, different needs. So it's not as freeing. I mean, you get to say, "Oh, I don't want it," and I
Mm-hmm.
want it, but it's not
Yeah.
as liberating as as it's advertised to be. It's about work. It's work. Work is
Hmm.
always going to be work. So yeah, I've had a very enjoyable experience working on pay to play sites, and I well, you said the branding is uniform, and well, you've spoken on that already. I don't know what to say on that.
No, you have a very nice branding, really.
Thank
Uh
you. Thank you.
you don't just use pictures, you use videos as well. I remember there's one that just lives rent free in my head. I think you're in front of a door and you're talking and you're saying some things about, so I found that to be very interesting. It makes you unforgettable. Yeah. So even the
Your branding
clients
should
too.
always be a best representation. It should always
Mm-hmm.
be you putting forward the best version of yourself. And not just the best version, the best and authentic version. I'm all for putting together your truest self.
Hmm.
So there's no version of me that is online that is not the true version of me.
Of you.
And people can
Wow.
tell through fallacy. Clients can sense your falsehood if you're being just phony.
Mm.
So be
I,
the
s-
most authentic version of yourself, honest
I agree.
version of yourself.
I agree. I agree. Let's talk about voiceover genres that you do. Which are your top three voiceover genres?
By the ones I get booked for or by the ones I enjoy doing?
Okay, so answer both questions now. The ones you get booked for and the ones you love doing.
Uh, I do a lot of narrations. So narration cuts across documentaries, e-learnings, trailers, online videos, audiobooks, narration generally. I do
Yeah.
love storytelling a lot.
Hmm.
So somehow that gravitates towards me.
Yeah.
Um, and I do animation and character voicing. I also do and enjoy commercial voicing. I mean, commercial is always regarded as the bread and butter of voiceovers because you don't break so much
Mm,
back, and it's just
hmm.
short, sweet, and nice, smiling to the bank.
Yeah, yeah. Great. How about the ones you love to do? I think you just answered the ones that comes to you the most, right?
No, I answered. You said I should join the two. I joined the two.
Oh no, I actually meant I know there are the top three that you love, but then when you
Mhm.
included the ones that you get booked for the most, I was wondering. So are they the ones you
Oh,
actually
okay. So
get
I
booked
love
for the most?
narration. I said I love storytelling. So I love narration because I love storytelling. I love to tell stories.
Yeah.
And it's just enjoyable being able to stir up emotions, being able to create a world that's not there for just like in the person's mind is fascinating. I also do commercials. I enjoy doing commercials and ads. And character voicing is almost like everybody's like, I want to join my voice. So character voicing and animation, that's like basically pretty much the same thing. It's always very nice. It's like, oh my God, am I many people in
Okay.
one?
Okay. But
So,
what are your most challenging genres that you've ever attempted?
hmm, most challenging. I think every genre can be challenging. Okay,
Hmm.
but I would say audiobooks. Now, the thing with audiobooks is the fact that it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So it's
Yeah.
not how fast, it's how long can
Hmm.
you span for. Because how you sound on page one,
Hmm.
you're going to need to sound on page 350 or page
Hmm.
1000. You
Hmm.
can't decide that I woke up very tired. My voice has changed. No, it did not change because that's just going to confuse the listener. And in the
Hmm.
audiobooks, for maximum results, it depends on the type of books you're narrating. If it's books that has numerous characters, you mustn't change your voice. I mean, I enjoy doing that, but you mustn't do that. However, it gives you have to
Hmm.
have a distinct way to enable the listener know that Tcode is talking, Lagbaja is talking now, it's Blessing,
Yeah.
it's Kure,
Yeah.
without having to go to the text and be like, who's talking now? It's this thing. So sometimes that can be very strenuous on your vocal cords, which is where
Yeah.
exercise and warm-ups and living and eating healthy comes in. Um,
Yeah.
that's where it comes in.
I
I think
agree. I agree.
audiobooks are a lot. And character voicing
Hmm.
is also sometimes goes from very short to very, very lengthy. So they're in the same group chat, both of them.
Hmm. Okay, commercial left the group.
No, commercial
All
is
right.
a darling.
I like commercials too. I don't know. Everybody kind of likes
Don't
commercials.
we all?
So what? Yes, we do. When you're not voicing, what do you do for fun? When you're not voice acting?
I travel. I sleep.
Okay.
I know this sounds very funny, but I sleep. I
Mm.
used to enjoy
Okay.
movies and cartoons. I watch a lot of cartoons. However,
Oh,
because
nice.
I voice characters, I start to it just ruined it. So
Okay.
yeah, because it's almost like your brain is subconsciously working and analyzing the voices and picking up things. And yeah, so when I'm not working, I enjoy traveling, and I do put up travel content, travel vlogs. I do document my travel. I mean, I travel way before I was there to do travel documenting on my platforms, but it's always something nice to do. I enjoy it.
Yeah. Interesting. Do you have any advice to upcoming voice actors? What would you advise them?
Keep moving, keep
Hmm.
improving, keep growing, take up space, and be very shameless with your marketing. Not shameless now in a very shameless way. Shameless in be fearless. As I said, take up space.
Hmm.
Keep on keeping on. Like put it. Oh, I do voiceovers. It's word of mouth. It's putting it on the internet. It is at every point you have to sell yourself. You're a walking
Hmm.
pitch. It's like you have to have your pitch deck in your mind. Someone just says, "Oh, hi, just in a conversation. Feel free to throw it in there." I mean, don't be obnoxious with it, but just learn the tactics to just put it in there in case you know anybody that
Mm-hmm.
does. And most times, somebody always knows somebody that needs voiceovers. And word of
Mm.
mouth and referrals, in-person referrals, um, are very, very have proven to be more fruitful. And this is why influencer marketing works. Because if a
Mm.
person is vouching for this particular product, it means subconsciously
Yeah.
there's a type of connection to, I trust that Blessing doesn't wouldn't put something out or endorse something that's trash. I could get it because Blessing
Yeah.
said it's okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's so I'm just saying keep moving, put yourself out there as much as you can, improve and keep growing. Honestly, the learning doesn't end. We still pay for classes, we still learn, we still watch YouTube, we still do trainings, we still have bad recording days, we still lose our
Yeah.
voice, but we
Yeah.
keep on keeping.
We keep on keeping. That's the word. Well, it's been a fantastic time with you, Blessing. And
Thank you.
I look forward to another time like this, when we get to talk about voiceovers, voice acting, and we keep moving and keep growing.
Mhm.
We could end it here, but is there any other thing you want us to know before the end of this session, this recording?
Uh, what would I want you to know? For more details, you could visit my website. For more details,
Okay.
or if you want to check out my work and just basically the things I represent, you could check out my website. It's blessynkure.com, BLESSYN.com. If you have inquiries, social media is still the same Blessyn Kure with the YN, and you can write me. That's almost like the fastest way to reach me. So contact at blessynkure.com. Um, and oh, check out my travel channel. Blessing Kure
On
listen
YouTube,
to.
I believe.
Yes, it is there.
What's the title of
Blessing
your
Kure.
Great. You earned yourself hundreds of subscribers already, if not thousands, as much as people would listen to this podcast.
That would be great. Thanks,
Great.
Tcode, for having me.
You're welcome. And the pleasure is mine, the honor is mine. Thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. And I can't wait to, see you doing bigger things in your space. It's been a pleasure.
Mean Jesus.
All right, guys, that's it for today, and we will meet in another episode. Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell someone about it. Follow the podcast on Everything VOs on all social media platforms. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode.